Hi, I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, and I'm based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you ever want to start a controversy, tell a group of photographers that their really expensive wide aperture lenses may not be worth it. Stick around and I'll explain why. I've been a professional photographer going on 12 years now, and they say experience is a great teacher, and over that period of time, you tend to learn a thing or two. When I first started out, I was a Canon shooter, and I just knew that when I made it, I wanted to aspire to Canon L lenses. They were expensive, they had really wide apertures, they had great build quality, and they had amazing image quality, right? I mean, they were so much more expensive that they just had to be so much better. But were they? Well, fast forward to today. Today's camera bodies and f1.8 lenses have improved rather dramatically over the last 12 years. The purpose of this video is to give you 5 reasons why you should consider f1.8 lenses over f1.4 lenses. By the way, before we get into this list, let me just make something very clear. I'm not telling you not to get those wide aperture lenses. I'm just giving you 5 reasons why you should consider getting the f1.8 versions instead. Ultimately, what you value and the decision of what to buy and where to spend your money for your business is ultimately up to you. I'm just relating my experiences. Moreover, neither the camera nor the lens make the photographer. The most important tool in your arsenal is the one that's located right here in between your ears. Don't ever forget that. Cameras and lenses are just tools. They don't make the photograph. You do. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the list. Number 5. Your neck, arms, and back will thank you. Generally speaking, we're talking about lenses with a focal length somewhere between 20mm and 85mm. If you compare the size and weight of, say, the Nikon 85mm f1.4 or the Canon 85 f1.4 versus their f1.8 versions, the weight difference is significant. With Sony, the 85mm f1.4 G Master weighs 1.8 pounds. The 85 f1.8 just over 13 ounces, or just under half the weight. Now, if you're a wedding photographer, chances are very good you're going to be carrying around a camera body or 2 all day. And if you can cut the weight of your lenses in half, then in the end what this really means is that you're going to need fewer doses of Motrin and Aleve. Number 4. Differences in image quality that likely only you and other professional photographers will notice or even care about. The simple fact of the matter is, and I'll keep saying this, lenses and cameras don't make pictures, you the photographer do. And how much of a difference is there really between an image shot at f1.8 versus that same image shot at f1.4? The answer is, in general, fairly negligible, especially if your audience is a non-photographer. Now, don't get me wrong, when you pixel peep at 100% wide open, chances are really good that the more expensive, higher quality lens will in fact render a better picture. Better sharpness, micro contrast, color, etc. And of course, in general, lenses get sharper as they get stopped down, meaning that an f1.4 lens should be sharper at f1.8 than the f1.8 lens is at f1.8. But are the differences significant enough to matter to your clients? I'm sure many watching this will say yes, but many others will likely say no. But the fact of the matter is, to the untrained eye, who again is usually the one looking at your images, I can almost guarantee you that they will not be able to tell the difference between an image shot at f1.8 versus an image shot at f1.4. Number 3. The high ISO low light quality and capability of today's modern camera bodies reduces the advantages of the extra 2/3 stop of light that you get with an f1.4 lens. Meaning an image shot at f1.8 at, say, ISO 3200 is going to look pretty similar to an image shot at f1.4 at ISO 2000. Now granted, the 3200 ISO image may be a little bit more noisy, but again, with today's camera bodies, even ISO 3200 is child's play and really doesn't make that much of a difference with the finished image. Now, you may find yourself in a situation where you need to go higher than ISO 3200. And in those situations, I understand and I admit that it's probably better to have the f1.4 lens. But you have to ask yourself, How often are you going to be in that situation where you need ISO, say 6400 or greater just to get the shot? Now, only you can answer that question, but to be brutally honest and speaking for myself, I rarely go above ISO 3200 unless I absolutely have to. In my experience, it really doesn't happen often enough to justify the price differences between these lenses. Now, you may find yourself in those situations all the time, where you need an f1.4 lens, and like an extra memory card slot, the argument's going to be, you know, I'm really glad it's there if I need it. But for most photographers, you probably won't. Or you probably won't, or at least you probably won't often enough to justify the expense. Number 2. Now, I recognize this next one isn't a huge deal for a lot of photographers, especially those who shoot with back button continuous autofocus. But your depth of field at base aperture is wider, meaning that you have a greater chance of getting your shot in focus, especially if you use single shot AF. I mean, let's face it, you're going to move, the subject is going to move, and when your depth of field is as razor thin as it is at f1.4, for example, even the slightest bit of movement can result in a softer than desired image. Again, this is not a huge deal for a lot of photographers, especially those who use continuous AF, but that little bit of extra depth of field can in fact result in a slightly sharper image. Which of course leads us to number 1. Number 1 is price. Sure, you're giving up 2/3 of a stop, but you're also saving about 60 to 70% of the cost of an f1.4 lens of the same focal length. Some examples. With Nikon, the 85mm f1.4 is about $1,600, while the f1.8 is about $476. The 35 f1.4 about $1,700. The f1.8 $526. Sony, the 85mm f1.4 G Master about $1,800. The 1.8 about $600. And one more, Canon, 85mm f1.4L $1,600. The 1.8 about $350. These aren't little differences. These are really, really big differences. And even with their shortcomings, that's enough money for you to look past the downsides. But that said, what are the downsides of f1.8 lenses anyway? Now, it's not all sunshine and lollipops, as there are some important drawbacks that you're going to need to consider when purchasing cheaper f1.8 lenses, because it isn't always just about image quality and price alone. For starters, in general, f1.8 lenses aren't built nearly as well as their f1.4 counterparts. Usually, they're made out of much cheaper and lighter weight plastic, and the focus rings aren't nearly as refined, in some cases not refined at all. And often the focus motors aren't as quick nor as quiet, but they're not so slow to not get the shot, nor are they so loud to be a distraction in a real-world situation like at a wedding. The majority of less expensive offerings also aren't weather sealed. That too can be an important consideration. Now that said, I've been utilizing the Nikon 85mm f1.8 and the 28mm f1.8 G lenses for about 4 years now with no issues whatsoever. Of course, I haven't dropped either one, nor have I left either one out in the rain. The other consideration is third-party offerings with f1.4 and f1.8 apertures, but you'll have to consider the size and weight of those lenses too. Now, I'm a big fan of Sigma lenses, but their latest Art Series lenses with wider apertures, well, those things are bone-crushingly heavy. They're beautiful, but they're still really, really heavy, and they're also priced somewhere between the f1.8 and f1.4 first-party lenses. Tamron came out with a pair of f1.8 lenses that are also built extraordinarily well, and to me are worthy of your consideration. Those are the SP lenses. There are plenty of other examples of cheaper alternatives out there, but they all have their fair share of drawbacks as well. But the ones that I mentioned are the notable ones. So that's it. Those are 5 reasons why I think you should consider an f1.8 lens as a viable alternative to those bigger, heavier, and much more expensive f1.4 lenses. So, what say you? I'm Darren Miles with Darren Miles Photography, based here in beautiful, sunny Southwest Florida. If you like videos like this, go ahead and give me a like, or better yet, subscribe. And until the next time, happy shooting.